You know, it's been more than a week since Mark Carney was elected Prime Minister of Canada, and I really haven't done a whole lot of posts on this. You know, I got to tell you, the political narrative, it just got a little raw for a lot of people. You know, definitely there's a huge divide in Canada. A lot of people are questioning the election. A lot of people basically voted Carney in because he kept, with the narrative that he is going to fight Donald Trump. So go figure, yesterday we've been waiting for the big meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Carney. And so here they are, pretty much straightforward, right out of the gate, handshake, smiles, let's take a look at the cameras, give a quick wave, there we go. It's kind of funny. So it's starting off as the typical meeting with President Trump at the White House. And so this is how it all starts, right? Very, very basic. This is where we're at. Now, before everybody jumps up and down, the truth is that did Mark Carney get elected to fight the big bad man in the U.S.? Now, here's my thing. I don't think he's the big bad man. I think the narrative got exploded because of course, President Trump's rhetoric, always talking about Canada potentially being the 51st state. But before I go down that road, a lot of people, when they were polled after the election, said the only reason they vote for Carney is because Carney's going to stand up. During his election campaign, he basically said Canada's relationship with the United States is over. Okay, it's not going to be like it once was. That's it. We need new trading partners. We're going to go elsewhere. So what were they trying to achieve during their meeting? I mean, President Trump's pretty hospitable. He always opens up the door. You come to see me, sort of like, the Godfather, but it's like, here, you come to see me. What do you want? And this is the thing, because in part of the conversation, a lot of people are saying, what do you think Mark Carney is going to do in front of President Trump? Well, let's take a look.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. As you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine.
Wow, look at that. And it's funny because one of the things that Trump has always done is he's been very good at, when dealing with people in negotiations, he makes them feel comfortable. You can see immediately, Mark Carney's face with a big smile saying, probably one of the greatest comebacks ever in the history of politics, even more so than Donald Trump. So wow, you know what? Let's just turn around and drop all the guards, because then what we did was we had Prime Minister Mark Carney turn around and return the favor. Let's see what he said.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl. Much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you.
Wow.
Very much. Very nice
I got to tell you, that's not the pit bull that I think some of you elected. I mean, I got the impression that he was just going to tear, Trump a new one when he got in front of him, put his foot down and make sure that, Trump was left, shaking in his boots. Of course, that was never going to happen. And I think most people knew how Mark Carney would end up dealing with Trump. And it's basically, yes, sir, 3 bags full. I mean, you see, here's the thing. What Mark Carney actually said about Donald Trump is very true. He said he's going to go after, make sure America first. He's going to increase employment. He's going to make sure that they're using American goods. And I don't have a problem with Mark Carney turning around and saying, hey, look, it's time for us to, as Canada, it's time for us to strengthen everything, and so we should, make our borders stronger, get rid of the fentanyl, make our defenses better. I mean, that's all sensical. Wasn't that part of what Trump was asking for in the first place? But again, this elbows up garbage. All of a sudden, everybody's going to try to defend the situation. And quite frankly, I think that what we're truly seeing is Mark Carney's not a deal maker, okay? He doesn't negotiate. He's basically going to take virtually whatever Donald Trump has to say. Let's see what else Mr. Trump had to say.
As a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Okay, owners of Canada. I know you're trying to slide in, basically Canadians, but I don't know, Mark. I think maybe you misinterpret that sometimes because is it China? I mean, are they the ones that own Canada now, or what country is owning Canada other than Canadians themselves, Mark? I mean, this is where when we take a look at the overall narrative, the idea of Mark Carney turning around and now moving everything forward, it's going to be interesting because I personally think that there's other hidden agendas that are going to come forward that aren't going to align with the U.S. I think it's going to be rocky. I don't know if he's as truthful as, a lot of the people that voted for him believe, because quite frankly, I don't believe him at all. And at the end of the day, I think that, Canada itself is going to be in for a rough ride. Now, one of the things that you didn't see on the clip was how Donald Trump did mention how he has such a disdain for, of course, Justin Trudeau. And on top of that, the female that works with him. And we all know that's Todd Freeland. But the funny thing is that Mark Carney kept Todd Freeland around. So my advice to Mark Carney is if you want to blow something up, make sure you send Todd Freeland for the negotiations, because you can be sure Trump and his team aren't going to put up with her. So in the big picture, where does Canada sit today? You know what? We're post the election. There's a lot of Canadians that are very, very unhappy about the results. There's a lot of question on the validity of the election, but the only thing we can do now is move forward. So how do we as Canadians move forward? If we're unhappy with, what's going on, then we have to support the people, the different members of parliament that are going to watch out for Canadians. So we kind of have to start on the base again. And we got to make everything stronger. And again, if you're happy with the results, so be it. You voted in the existing government now. The problem is that if it goes awry, we already knew it would because of the last 10 years. So Canada moving forward, there's a lot of work to do. I believe that there's a lot of work for Canadians. I believe that there's a lot of work for the government, which I'm not sure that they're going to support Canadians to do the work. But other than that, the only thing that you and I can do is, of course, watch out for our families, the next generation, our kids, everybody that's going to be moving forward with us. And that's one of the most important things we can do today. So, I'd love to hear your comments on, again, what you thought of the overall take. I've given you mine. One thing I'm going to tell you is that I'm not going to be posting all the time about, a lot of the politics. My mainstay always will be real estate, securing people's wealth, the future of things. So as far as, stepping back a little off the political ledge, probably do it. We'll continue to post when things are important. I thought this meeting was important enough because, quite frankly, we saw the true colors of Mark Carney. What do you think? I'm Todd C. Slater. Thanks for tuning in.